Hi, hello, how are you everyone? This is Flashback with Wes Britton, and I'm Wes Britton, and you're about to hear an hour of celebrity interviews with folks from films, from TV, from music, from comedy, from old-time radio. We touch a lot of bases with entertainers from the past, present, and future. We're going to be telling you all kinds of stories with a lot of world experience and wisdom and all of the things that we know well in this generation. So stay tuned for Flashback with Wes Britton.
Coming up here in just a few seconds, part 2 of my special interview with actress Stefanie Powers, followed by my interview with Tabitha Starcher, who's going to take us behind the scenes of the Golden Globes. And then we're going to finish out this hour, classy ladies, with Valentine Wolf doing their version of the very, very classic Greensleeves. So, enough of me. Let's bring on Stefanie Powers.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Hello, this is Stefanie Powers, and you are listening to Wes Britton. Please tune in.
Okay, can we do that once again and add in Flashback? And you are listening to Flashback with Wes Britton.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Are you ready?
I am ready. Action.
Don't laugh, because then that'll be on the tape. All right, let me do it. 1, 2, 3, action. Hello, this is Stefanie Powers, and you are listening to... Oh, dear, what are we listening to?
We should leave that in. Flashback with Wes Britton.
Flashback, okay. Here we go again. 1, 2, take 3. 1, 2, 3. Hello, this is Stefanie Powers, and you are listening to not take 3. Oh, shit. Oh, boy, I hope that doesn't happen to me on the set.
I'm going to have to keep all these and put them together on a string.
Okay, what is the name of your show?
Flashback.
Flashback. Okay, sorry. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. Hello, this is Stefanie Powers, and you are listening to Flashback with Wes Britton.
Yay! There we are. All right. Well, then maybe now is time for tell the folks, what does the William Holden Wildlife Foundation do, and why was it honored at the UN?
Well, let's see. Well, I first have to go into a bit of the story of why William Holden, why a wildlife conservation foundation should be made in his name. Bill went out to Kenya in the 1950s, before Kenyan independence, which was 1963. He fell in love with the place. He went there with 2 friends. They went out as hunters, because in those days, people hunted. The herds were prolific. Going on a hunting safari means trip. So going on a hunting safari was very expensive. So it wasn't everybody who could afford to do that. So it wasn't as if there was a wholesale slaughter of animals going on. They were very careful, very conscientious hunters. So they wouldn't go and kill the biggest tusks or any females whatsoever. They were responsible. So they were out on their big safari, and they fell in love with the country, Bill in particular. And there was a hotel that they were staying in that was up for sale. It was a kind of upcountry inn, and it was on the slopes of Mount Kenya with a view of the most gorgeous mountain. It's the only permanently glacier-covered mountain on the equator in the world. And at a certain point, they said we should buy this. At the time, Bill was living in Switzerland, so it was a very easy trip for him to come from Switzerland down to Kenya. And the 3 of them bought this place, and they turned it into the Mount Kenya Safari Club, which became a kind of jewel in the crown for people visiting that part of the world, and still is to a certain extent. It was shortly after, that was in the 1950s, I believe it was. And in 1958, Bill began to negotiate with the farmer who owned the 2,000 acres surrounding this lovely hotel, which was then made into the Safari Club. And Bill had an idea. Finally, the farmer acquiesced to selling, and Bill bought the complete farm, which he had an idea to create the very first game ranch for the preservation of species. He was a visionary. He could see that the wild places and the encroachment of civilization and human population on the wild places was going to diminish greatly the herds of animals and going to change the face of the entire country, as it has. So he wanted to preserve as many animals and animal species as he could, and it wound up being a sanctuary for 37 species of East African wildlife, 5 of which are no longer visible in the wild. It was called the Mount Kenya Game Ranch, and one of the things Bill always wanted to do was to build an education center for local people so that they could learn about their own wildlife and the need for the conservation of wildlife, the biodiversity of it, and the food chain of it that provided the natural world with the sustenance that we dine out on, that gives us the pleasure of being on this planet. And so if you don't give that information to local people who have the future of their flora and fauna in their hands, you can't just say, don't cut that tree down. You really have to it's an obligation to be able to say why it's important not to cut that tree down. But it is for us as well.
Yes.
It's for everybody, not just over there. The changes in our planet are our responsibility to fix. The planet was here and was giving us a wonderful time, but we destroyed it. So now we have to fix it, because it can't fix itself anymore. No. We've managed to destroy that possibility. So now it's our responsibility to put back a little bit of what was destroyed. And that's what we some of what we concentrate on at the education center that we built after Bill's death. So the one thing he wanted to do before he died was to build this education center. So after his death, I created the William Holden Wildlife Foundation as a public charity in the United States. We got our 501c3 public charity status, which means that any donation is tax-free. You can deduct it. It's the mission statement of the foundation is wildlife conservation through education and alternatives to habitat destruction. So it's not very well and good if we preserve species and there's no place for the species to live. Mm-hmm. So if we are, and because so much of the destruction of habitat is our fault, and is the principal reason that we have what everybody calls climate change. But this greenhouse effect and climate change was predicted a long time ago, and we were just
greedy
and greedy to listen. Now we have no choice. Well, we have a choice. We can continue to be greedy and self-centered, or we can start looking at ourselves in the mirror and seeing what we consume and whether or not it's sustainable for that consumption, and whether or not we need it. I mean, how many dresses does somebody need that they wear once and throw into a landfill? These dresses that are purchased at all these wonderful shops that that sell them very cheaply, and everybody can wear a new dress every single week. Those dresses are not made out of biodegradable material. They're made out of cheap miracle fabrics that are largely made out of petroleum. And they don't disintegrate in the ground. There was a horrible exhumation that occurred a couple of years ago in Bosnia of one of those mass graves of people that were shot during the Bosnian War. The bodies had, of course, decomposed. But you know what hadn't? The Adidas shoes. The sports shoes. They were intact. The dresses, the clothing that was made out of these plastic, fake miracle fabrics, they were there, intact. It was the most grotesque and ghoulish lesson. But maybe human beings need to see this to actually be shocked into reality.
I keep wondering.
That we're contributing to this, and how much we're contributing. So we have to do something about it, and there is nothing too small to do. So think of what every one of us as individuals can think about everything we consume on a daily basis and try to reuse our plastic bottles until they break or in some way they're unusable. But we don't have to throw them out just because we've used up the contents. There are lots of things we can do that don't cost money and that we can do by simply looking at ourselves through a very, very realistic mirror.
Well, I want to continue down that line of thought after we connect the dots to a special event at the UN. We got to mention that.
All right. Well, I will say that in our pursuit of our mission statement, we built an education center where we currently and have for the last, almost 20 years, served about 11,000 students a year. We also have an outreach program that copes with another 6,000 families and people on a continual basis in very rural and impoverished areas that we service and where we build schools and we service with our education programs. The William Holden Wildlife Foundation's website is something that anybody can, if you have a computer and you have a mind to learn some more about what we do, please look us up on www. And it's the acronym of the foundation, WHWF, for William Holden Wildlife Foundation.org.
Easy to remember.
And in that light is the recent acknowledgement of our work, along with 25 other people's work, was highlighted in a presentation at the United Nations through a luncheon, announcing this wonderful e-book, which is available to all on the internet for free, highlighting the work of people such as myself, but I believe that I'm the only one that's highlighted who works in the fields of conservation and of flora and fauna. And the other 24 people are doing extraordinary work in individual causes that they are passionate about and that have proven their passion by their dedication and their accomplishments. So I am thrilled that we are represented among those wonderful works. It's lovely to be validated. We are very well followed on the internet, and with the people who support us, our wonderful donors who make it all possible. It would be lovely if anybody was interested in our work to really ask us some questions and to maybe join us as a member of the William Holden Wildlife Foundation and see how you can get involved either with us or with in your local area, being concerned about the future of our biodiversity in both animal, insects, bees, wildlife, and in the habitat that they and we share.
Absolutely. Well, that's kind of where I was going to see where we were going to go, because you already started mentioning things should do and can do on an individual basis. Can you carry on with that a bit? What should folks be doing to help preserve the planet?
Well, as I said, I think if anyone is interested who's listening, there's a lot of information available.
Yes.
There's information available on our website. You may be passionate about a particular species of animal. There are organizations and wonderful people working in the field. And I mean, absolutely in the field, as we are working in the field. We're not an organization that, does fundraising events and then sends it to somebody else to do. We do it ourselves. My fingernails are short and unmanicured for a reason, because they get into the dirt. And just get involved. I cannot encourage people more than saying it's your future and your planet and your legacy to become involved and try in one way or another to do something on a daily basis to help this poor planet that we've taken so much from.
All right, as we prepare to ride off into the sunset, what's the future for Stefanie Powers? It doesn't sound to me like you plan on slowing down in the slightest.
There's no reason to.
That's right.
I mean, give me a reason why I have to slow down.
Done.
People have been telling me all my life, when you're older and you get married and you have kids, you'll slow down. Well, I didn't choose to have kids, and so I never slowed down. And so I don't think that it's necessary to actually slow down.
That's one thing I kind of noticed about our respective generations up here, is that people get involved in their craft, their art, and whatever it is, and even into their 70s and 80s and 90s, still at it, have no intention of getting off the road, getting off the stage, anything, because they love what they do, and it's important, and it keeps us vital.
Certainly does. And don't forget, age is really just a number, and it doesn't have to be your number. Doesn't have to be your number. You can make up whatever number you want in your head.
I should be younger than I am, that's for sure. Well, all right. Well, with that, Stefanie, I got to say thanks for a wonderful whirlwind hour, however long we've been talking. I didn't even keep track of time.
Yeah.
And we're about to go into a realm today that we haven't done before here at Flashback. And that's looking at award shows. That's looking at the Emmys. That's looking at the Emmys from somebody who actually has earned one, or two, I think. Well, we'll find out more from Tabitha Starcher, who's sitting over there, who's got a lot to do with the National Academy for Television Arts and Sciences, and she's going to tell you why they're so much more than golden statuettes. So hi, Tabitha. Welcome to Flashback.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I guess let's get started with you introducing yourself. Tell the folks who you are and why they should be interested in you.
Well, that one might be a tough question, but my name is Tabitha Starcher, and I am Head of Business Development for the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, or as most people know us, the Emmys. And I oversee all 8 of our national shows, including the Daytime Emmys, the Children's and Family Emmys, the Sports Emmys, the Technology Emmys, the News and Documentary Emmys, and the list goes on and on.
And what is involved in prepping for the Emmys these days? Because times have changed, haven't they?
They absolutely have changed. I think so much has changed even just in the last decade, even with how you watch the Emmys and watch television and entertainment as a whole, right? So you have a lot of streaming platforms out there and social media that's just changing the game. Yeah, so I think in terms of answering your question, what goes into prepping for the show, you know, I'm more on the business side, so I can speak much more to that. But I think, you know, for me, it's really evaluating who our sponsors are going to be, and those are the people that really help us to put on that show, right? They're sort of what makes the world go round when it comes to the Emmys. So it's about figuring out what the red carpet sponsors are going to be, and the after party sponsors are going to be, and the advertisements in the show is going to be. And then, of course, also making sure that when you have a platform like the Emmys, that you're using that platform for good. I think you said earlier in the initial intro that, you know, we are really known for that golden statue, as we should be. She is certainly the gold standard, as you will, in television. But we do so much more than give trophies to famous people. We really, really do. We are a nonprofit. We have a foundation. That's probably one of the highlights of my role here, is being able to work in the capacity of shining a light or sharing the Emmy stage with a lot of brands that are minority-owned brands, and being able to reach out to young people, students, and people who really want the chance to be in this industry and to tell stories that are meaningful. And that is it's a huge part of what we do at the Academy, and a big part of my passion and my role.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. What is the educational component to the Academy?
Yeah, so our foundation, which you can learn much more about on our website, our foundation is has been known for its entire existence for reaching out to students and providing scholarships. And those scholarships go to help them with their education. I started a scholarship sponsored by Coca-Cola that I am incredibly proud of, the HBCU grant. We give that away at the Sports Emmys every year. That'll be coming up this spring. And that grant really is geared specifically towards HBCUs. But we don't just give the kids the $40,000 grant. We also provide them the opportunity to come to the Emmys and to experience what it is to walk the red carpet and get their photo and network. You know, when you're a college student coming out of getting an education and spending that money to be in an industry, it's tough sometimes to get your start and to meet people and get your foot in the door. And so a huge part of what we do with the foundation is obviously help them with financial assistance, which is a very meaningful thing to me as a kid coming out of poverty. I was actually born and raised in the state of West Virginia, but I relied heavily on financial aid to get my education. And so I'm very proud that we are able to do that for these students. But I think it's critically important for people to realize that there's so much more that we have to do for young people. You have to also help provide them opportunity. You have to help create space for them and open doors for them. And that's a big part of what we do at the foundation.
Now, this is funding for degrees really all across the country, not just in L.A. or anything like that, right?
Oh, no, that's correct. Yeah, absolutely. So we have students who also participate in the Student Production Awards. So, and those kids come from literally all over the country. We have chapters, Emmy chapters, and the Emmy chapters give out scholarships every year, and the winner of those scholarships compete on the national level. And we do the Student Production Awards, and those awards can also be watched via our platform, OTT platform, at watch.theemmys.tv. It's a great show. You get to meet a lot of new and up-and-coming talent. So I would really encourage people to log on and watch those shows. They're posted from past years, and they're fantastic. They're really fantastic. You may see a lot of people on there you know. As a matter of fact, I would promise you that you're going to see a lot of people on there that you know.
Oh, I did mention real briefly as we started off that you, too, are an Emmy winner. What was all that about?
Yes, I have won a regional Emmy. I was nominated for 2, but I won one in 2010. and I won that with the local PBS station here in Indianapolis, WFYI. And I will say, while we're on the topic, that I couldn't be more grateful for the things that WFYI and PBS stations do in our communities. It's such a great way for young people to be involved. They do so much community activity, but it's also a great place for you to get your start. It's certainly where I was able to get my footing. And so I'm extremely grateful to those types of programs and programming, I guess I should say.
I'll second that emotion. Well, we alluded to also very early in the program that funding for these programs or these shows has changed dramatically, particularly because of sponsorship changes. And, well, what has changed?
Well, I think that that has been a massive shift, and I touched on it a little bit earlier when I said that the streaming platforms and social media has changed everything. But, you know, I've used this example in a lot of different conversations. And, 20 years ago, you really, if you were an advertiser, you're really looking at ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, right? Yep. So if you had $100,000 and you're going to spend that, or $1 million, or whatever your budget is, right, you're dividing it up between a few of those four. Now you're talking about content is placed in so many different places. I mean, there's 50 or 60 primary placements, and then there's, influencers, and influencers sometimes have more viewers than you have on a nationally syndicated show, right? Mm. And so the competition for those advertising dollars has most certainly changed, and the competition has grown, which if you're an artist is a wonderful thing. But now you don't just have 4 networks where you could air your work. You have all of these different options for placing your work, which means there's so much more out there. There's so many good shows. There's so much good content. There's so much great, any kind of entertainment that you're looking for, documentaries, sports, news, whatever you're looking for, you can find that by the throws now on your phone. And so it has changed dramatically in terms of how we watch and how much content is out there, but also where the advertisers put their money. I mean, I'm not going to age you, but I'll be brave enough to age
Go
myself.
right ahead.
And say, yeah, I'll be brave enough to age myself. Growing up when I was watching a TV show and an advertiser bought, advertising, you didn't have the option to pay an extra $5 a month and skip through it. It wasn't a platform that if you were willing to pay, you could not have commercials.
Nope.
Back then, that was your chance. When the ad comes on, you and your siblings are racing to go to the bathroom or go grab your snacks or do whatever you are, and you're hurling over chairs to get back in there before your show starts again, right? And get your spot back before your sister gets it, And so that was how it was done. You're going to see you're going to get the commercials, right? It's not like that anymore, So there's so much more product placement now, that type of thing, which makes sure that product is in front of you. It's not an ad where you're just going to get up and take your chance to go make yourself another drink, right? I think the business side of the industry has changed tenfold and continues to change rapidly year over year right now. We're in this cycle now where technology is growing so quickly that it's tough to keep up on sometimes.
One thing I often comment on is I don't know how many years of my life I lose to advertising.
Well, I could say 2 things about that. One, I think there's some truth to that. But 2, I think products and brands, it's so important to have them both in what I do, but also through the years, their advertising is getting so much better. And what I mean by that is now, you look at the Super Bowl. in the ads that come through in the Super Bowl. I mean, there are now blogs and competitions and who had the best Super Bowl ad, and no one would miss the Super Bowl ads. They might miss plays in the Super Bowl before they'd miss the Super Bowl ads, right? And that's what I mean about the change in the dynamic of how this stuff has become almost a cultural thing at this point. It's not what it used to be where you're using that as your bathroom break or your chance to go make yourself another snack. It is so much different now.
Do you think these advertisers and sponsors are using their clout to affect the programming in terms of the content in any way?
I would not go that far. Most certainly not with the Emmys. I can't speak to other things I'm not involved in, but I don't. I can tell you that in our show, there really is no way or no not only no space for it, but it's never been even brought up, which would lead me to believe that I don't think advertisers have that option at other places, right? So
not like the 50s. They controlled everything.
I think they do have a lot of leverage, because I think if you're a content creator, you make TV and film and these things, you definitely need the advertisers. You need it to make that product national or global, for sure. So I think that's, especially if you want to make a living doing it, unless it's a hobby, right? So I think they play a critical role, and one that is highly sought after. But I don't think they necessarily affect what you're seeing on the screen in terms of the outcome of, of what you're watching. No. At least I haven't experienced that.
Okay. Well, since you've been involved in so many award shows, do you have any favorite moments that you look back on?
Oh, my goodness.
Probably too many to count.
You what?
Probably too many to count.
That is true. We've had a lot of great moments. I think that probably has a lot to do with what your interest level is. Mm-hmm. I love sports. So I think we've had some great moments at sports. We've had some great moments on our red carpet. Last year, Dick Van Dyke won an Emmy well into his 90s. Yeah. And to watch him at his age, walk down that red carpet, and I say walk, but we have a video of him. He danced all the way down the red carpet, well into his 90s. And that was a really, really cool thing to be there and witness. You kind of think you're a witness to history there, right? To be able to see that. It was a really, really cool thing. I think there's been some phenomenal moments on the I love documentary. And I think I like that because I think there's so many meaningful stories that get told in that way. I think our news show has had some of the most emotional experiences I've had, just watching some of these people come from war-torn countries, where they are risking their lives to tell these stories, and they talk about hiding in floors of houses and these types of things. And it's, I think when you really realize the sacrifices that those people make to be able to deliver the news, it sort of changes your view on, I think we turn the TV on and you think what you're watching is something that was just easy to get, or it came from someone who's not human and doesn't have families. When you really start associating it to the fact that that human being is married and has children and they have a mom, and they're telling this story with bombs going off behind them, right? It kind of changes the dynamic of it. And I think when you meet them and you hear them telling it in person rather than in between you and a TV screen, that hits home a little more.
What are your thoughts about the news of this last year, which has been really all over the map, to put it mildly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't usually get too wrapped up in those things. I think that it's important when, especially around discussions around the Emmys, is that we award excellence, and we award excellence in television. And that's not really opinion-based in terms of, taking sides on the story.
Gotcha. Well, one thing I picked up in your bio is that you guys like to really push for minority representation, and especially gender equality. Care to talk about that for a bit?
Absolutely. I think that's such an important topic. When we talk about the Emmys, you are talking about, as I said a moment ago, you're talking about awarding excellence, and I think that you have to realize that when you're not seeing the representation, then you are not getting the best of. You're not getting the best of society, because representation, regardless of color or race or orientation or, religion or, politics or whatever, regardless of that, the excellence in terms of creativity and the things that make the world go round really happen in every community all around the world. And so when you're not seeing that representation, it has to trigger the question within yourself: are you really getting the best of the best? And so I love that we have been cultivating a relationship with the WNBA Players Association, a few of the WNBA teams. I love to see women's sports growing at the rate that it is. I love to see them, moving the ball forward, because what that means is it opens the doors for young women to have the same aspirations as young men do when they're growing up, and the same opportunities. And of course, in our industry, it means that you are seeing a good representation from every walk of life, and which means you probably are getting a good sample of the best, right? So I think that has been a huge focus, certainly in my department, since I've been with the Academy, is to ensure that we have an equal representation at the Academy from all walks of life, and particularly having more women involved in sports has been one of those things.
Do you have any particular sponsors you'd like to give a shout-out to who have been very supportive and helpful in your endeavors?
Oh, absolutely. So I mentioned Coca-Cola earlier. They have absolutely been incredible. One thing that I will say, we are so fortunate at the Academy that we have been able to work with huge companies, often big fortune companies, who have really taken on the responsibility of ensuring that they're giving back, both to their communities and to society as a whole. And Coca-Cola has been amazing, and they've been in the forefront of so many things that they are 100% responsible for the success of the HBCU grant. They have been all in on making that a priority.
Wait, clarify what HBC stands for.
Historically Black colleges.
There you go.
Yep. And so that has been phenomenal, and I am looking forward to working with them in the years to come. We've signed another agreement with them, and we're going to continue to push that ball forward. Mutual of Omaha has also been an amazing part of what we do. Mutual of Omaha has such a great view on the world, particularly around animals and just helping with the environment and all of the things that should be important to all of us, because this is what we're leaving to the next generation, right? So they have put in our gift bags every year. We give gift bags to the winners at our shows, and inside those gift bags have been little plush animals, and each of those animals represent an endangered species. And the purchase of those goes towards helping endangered species. I couldn't say enough. There's not enough time on this show to talk about all the great programs the Two of Omaha has, and one of those they work with us here at the Emmys on, and I couldn't be more grateful for them. Four Roses Bourbon is another huge contributor to the Academy. They have been such a big part of what we do. They started by sponsoring the Sports Emmys, and now they sponsor 4 of our shows. At the Sports Emmys, it has become a thing now that there's a winner's walk. If you're a big fan of award shows, you're probably aware of this. You walk the red carpet first at the beginning of the show. You have the show. If you win, you get your trophy, your Emmy, and you come out and you get to walk the carpet a second time with your Emmy and take photos in the media. And in the winner's walk, you're walking holding that statue in your hand and giving an interview and waving it around and taking photos and all the things. And so we had some of our guys a few years back from one of our shows grab bottles of Four Roses and walk the winner's walk, and they did if you lose, you booze. And so it has become a bit of a staple thing in association with that, and have been a very, very fun project. But Four Roses has been an outstanding partner. I can't say enough about what they do. The work they do in their own community is absolutely phenomenal. If you have a chance, your listeners, to go out and really look at, obviously have a wonderful product, but really look at some of the things that they sponsor and some of the things that they do. These are the types of people we love to partner with. We love to bring them in and associate our brand. You know, I have always considered as head of business development that the Emmys are a golden household luxury brand. And that is the type of brand that we always want to associate ourselves with. And I find that one of the priorities in being associated with the Emmys absolutely has to be that with the platform that we have, the stage that we have, the Emmy stage, the Emmy red carpet, that has to be used, that platform, to promote good. You can't just have a platform like that and it be solely about giving trophies to famous people. You have to do some other things with that platform. And that has been something our executive team has been 110% behind. We've been able to really do a lot of really cool, really meaningful projects. And a lot of that has had to do with we are partnered with people who see their success the same way. The success of their company, the money their companies bring in, is something that they share in ways that make an impact on people in their communities and people all over the world. And I love that.
Well, I know we're getting kind of close to time. Are there any things you can suggest to the listeners out there that they can do or be involved with to participate in all these activities you're talking about?
Absolutely, yeah. So first I would say go out to our website, check out our foundation. There is always room to work with us and donate to helping in those areas. But you can also log on and become a member and watch our shows on our platform, sign up. You can see past shows, you can see current shows. If you follow me on social media or you follow the Academy on social media, you'll get to see everything that we put in the gift bags, which is always a lot of fun. You get to see what we're gifting the celebrities. I think there's a lot of opportunity to engage, and most of that is usually posted either on social media or on our site. As we draw closer to each show, it'll be different depending on the show, but I would love to have engagement. Absolutely love to see it.
And your website is what?
Watch.theemmys.tv is where you can go and find and get signed up to watch our shows on the OTT platform. and from there you'd be able to click over to our main website, and our foundation link is there. So very, very easy to find. You can type in the name of any of our shows, the Daytime Emmys, the Sports Emmys. It's going to take you directly to our site as well.
And you said that was the Watch what?
Watch.theemmys.tv, or you can go to theemmys.com.
Okay, simple enough. All righty. Well, any last words you'd like to share with the listeners before we run off into the sunset?
I would just say thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to all of your listeners, and I hope that they'll tune in, and I hope they'll get more engaged, not just with the Emmys, but in projects around their community. I think it's so important to be involved.
Absolutely.
It really defines who you are, what you do for others. They say you're not going to take it with you, so I would definitely leave them with that.
I second that emotion, and this is the time of the year to talk about that. Well, actually, any time of the year is good to talk about that, but it is that time of year. Well, I guess with that, I'll say thanks to Tabitha for chalking out some time with us, and I'll see you next time.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, we hope you enjoyed tonight's exciting episode of, well, to quote the Firesign Theater's Phil Proctor, Flashback. But stay tuned. That's just hour 1 of Wes Britton Celebrity Interviews. Hour 2 with Remember Again. Nah, that doesn't work. Anyway, Remember Again is coming up in just a few minutes. So stay tuned, and hour 2 is going to launch shortly.